the Chair for appearing before us today. In your testimony, you touched on equity market structure. I wanted to highlight one of the things that you said. You said that you all have been proceeding since your last visit here with an ongoing assessment of the U.S. equity market structure to ensure that our markets remain the deepest and fairest in the world and optimally serve investors and companies of all sizes seeking to raise capital. I wanted to turn your attention to the National Market System Plans, NMS plans, that were created in 1975 as an amendment to the Securities and Exchange Act 40 years ago, and obviously a lot of things have changed since that time. The U.S. equity exchanges at that time were not-for-profit. They were member-owned. Today, of course, they're publicly traded and they are for-profit, and so a lot has changed in the last 40 years. When you talk about plans for the collection dissemination of market data, I think that we would all agree that if you want to ensure the deepest and fairest markets in the world and optimally serve our investors, you have to have accurate market data, and that's got to be collected and disseminated in a fair and accurate way. In the aftermath of the NASDAQ SIP outage in August 2013, I think there were some concerns that were raised about the governance of these NMS plans. We know that the NMS plan participants are exclusively representatives of the exchanges and FINRA with no industry representation. And that leads, it has been argued, to two separate problems. One is that you don't have a broad-based representation among these participants in providing the best sort of leadership and vision for what needs to take place in making sure that these SIPs are the best that they can be. And then secondly, and perhaps more of greater concern, is the conflict of interest issue. And that has, of course, to do with the fact that because of the way the revenue is shared, that that there is a disincentive to invest in the SIPs to make them as good as they should be. And also the secondary issue relating to a conflict of interest has to do with the fact that these exchanges have their own data feeds that compete with the SIPs information. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about where you are, what you think should be done as it relates to the reforming the governance of these NMS plans.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, and this is one of the reasons that I frankly sort of identified this very deep, comprehensive review of NMS and equity market structure even before I was confirmed as one of the highest priorities. And we've proceeded on that, really in a sense, on two parallel tracks. One, there's some things that, clearly would optimize the markets that we're proceeding on in terms of specific rulemaking, and then the other is really the more comprehensive review that takes into account. And we've obviously spent a lot of time, dealing specifically also with, SIP governance and single point of failure, and enormously important that the SIP provide its information, quickly to the, with the consolidated information. And and I think you can see from our work on the Market Structure Advisory Committee and the subcommittees that we just formed that we're looking very much at that issue, those issues, as well as just kind of the whole role of the, exchanges in the equity market system. So we're not, we haven't concluded on those things, but very much front attention.
But can you, as you sit here today, can you explain to me why, what resistance there is, or why we should continue to have these participants that are exclusively from the SROs without including anybody from industry?
I think, and I'm not sure I can, provide that answer other than to say that, I mean, one of the things we need to make sure that as we are making the changes, the system, continues to function. And I'm not suggesting putting a representative from the industry on there would mean it didn't continue to function, but we're trying to sort of optimize every aspect as we go. So I could probably provide you some further information on that.
Well, I'd appreciate it, and I do think that the conflict of interest issue is something that obviously goes to the fundamental fairness issue that I think that we all want to see in our markets. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The Chair now recognizes the gentleman from